How many four-letter words can I use on that?
Trying to switch to a double. Cheddar is driving. Nothing yet. Takedown, Michael Cheddar.
Oh, Nick, I'm a top guy, so I love top wrestling.
Hale trying to stick him. He does. Maximus Hale the fall.
So I think that wrestling is the greatest sport on earth.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome into On3 Wrestling. I'm your host, Nick Kosko, as we roll on through the spring and eventually the summer. Wrestling's never over, and with me today is Rutgers Wrestling All-American John Poznanski. John, was looking forward to having you on the program for quite a bit. Pleasure to talk to you. It's been a few months, and we'll just start right there, man. The last couple of months been a little bit interesting, stepping away from the sport. I'm just curious, what are these last 2 months of not actually wrestling? What's it been like for you over the last, let's say 6 to 8 weeks?
Yeah, it's been really different. I been trying to just heal my body up. Been hanging out with the family a lot, a little bit of traveling, but kind of just hanging out and see what my new life's like.
What was it like when you ultimately decided, and to kind of jump into it a little bit, when you decided to walk away, what was like the first thing you did? Was it just like, hey, I need to basically just get a factory reset mentally and physically, so to speak? Yeah,
definitely a big reset. Got to get my body healthy for sure. That was a lot that went into it. But kind of just taking it every day by day, like I always did. But now just like in a different world. So it's kind of where I'm at now, and kind of seeing where life's going.
Have you had time to reflect on your entire wrestling career? At a certain point, I figured, if you're going to step away from the sport and need to, mentally and physically reset, I'm sure you're not going to be wanting to talk about or, really do anything wrestling related for a little bit. But have you had time to really reflect back on the last 5 years?
Yeah, I'm really open about, my decision and all that. It wasn't like just one day I woke up and it was like, you know what, I'm done. Like it was kind of, a while. It's been a conversation I had with my family, really closely before I did all that. And, it's best for me, my health, and best for, what my future is going to hold. And, wrestling's just a sport. I did a lot, through my career, and I'm happy with it. I have no regrets, and, I'd make the decision again, but it's a hard one for sure. I gave a lot to the sport. I gave my entire life to it, but I'll always have it, all the things that it taught me. And I could always teach the rest of my life. I can go compete in jiu-jitsu and stuff like that if I want to. But for me, it's getting my body right, getting my head right, and everything around that, for the rest of my life.
People don't really talk too much about the mental side of wrestling. Of course, there are more outlets to do so now. I think, there's the Wrestling Mindset podcast, I think, is one of them. Obviously, your podcast, Destination Talk, you guys get a lot into the mental side of things of athletics. For you personally, the mental side of things, was there something that was just weighing you down with the sport of wrestling and I guess the competitive nature? Was that always evident throughout your career, or did that come a little bit later as you moved through college?
I think for me, when I was in high school, like, I don't know. I think as you get farther into the sport, as your body grows, as your mind gets smarter, you definitely, there's more little things that come into the sport. But for me, like that last 2 years, I was battling injuries left and right. And, it's, if you can't practice and train the right way, it kind of affects you when you get on the mat. Am I ready? You start questioning things. But, I was always, one day at a time, one step at a time, kind of person throughout my training and throughout how I competed. But after a while, it takes a toll, and you have to be able to talk to people. If you don't open up and find people that can help you, sometimes, that you can't do it all yourself. So I think that's what I'll say for that.
You had the extra year of eligibility still going into next season. Did it make the decision a little bit harder knowing that, like if I had a little bit more in the tank, maybe I could give it one more year if I do X, Y, and Z? Or did it actually make the decision easier knowing that, I have another year, but why waste it if it's going to go, maybe the same way where injury, and then all of a sudden you're battling kind of the same things?
Yeah, I mean, I've had five concussions in my college career, and that takes a toll, and on top of all the other things going on. I'm not trying to make excuses or anything, but it takes a toll, and I got to live in this body the rest of my life. You know what I mean? So I don't really want to or really feel the need that I need to prove anything else to myself or to anybody else with this extra year. I mean, I could always use it if I really want to, but
Yeah.
like I said, I can go compete in jiu-jitsu, or
Mm.
I got a full-time job that I got with the company I interned with, a really good one that I'll be really successful with. So
Mm.
I see a new life in my next life, I guess you call it. Because I read a quote the other day. It was athletes live two lives. Their competition life, then they die, and then they start a new one. So that's kind of how I see it a little bit too.
I like that perspective a lot. You're always going to be a Rutgers Wrestling All-American. You go back to 2021, your first year on campus, albeit a very weird year during that shortened season. But I wanted to rewind a little bit. Going back to St. Louis, you finished fourth at 184 pounds as a true freshman. You unfortunately ran into some hammers, and like Trent Hidley, and of course, eventually an all-time great in Parker Keckheisen. But you look at that tournament, and it's like, I think maybe only you, your teammates, and the staff believe that you could finish that high right away when you have a loaded weight class like that. Just take me back to that tournament. Again, it was a very weird year. You didn't wrestle too much. Nobody really wrestled that much that year in 2021. How insane was that tournament run when you really look back on it?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like a little bit of a blur because it happened, it was so long ago, but it feels like it was like last week. But I was in overtime with both those guys, two guys that are really, high names in the sport. I was always very, very close, a couple times. I mean, look at 2 years ago, I was wrestling Buchanan and Ultimate Rideouts, all these really top-notch guys I was really close to, beating. And, my career could have looked a little bit different, but, you can never go back and, change those things. But my freshman year was definitely a tournament to remember. The Big Ten tournament too, 2 weeks before that NCAA tournament was another good run. But I think that was definitely one of the greatest moments of my life, hugging Coach Donnie Pritzloff after I won that quarterfinal round. Those are things I'll always remember and no one can ever take away from me. So it's just a surreal moment, and, I always remember it.
It's funny because the very next year, you have a lot more expectations. And I guess just going back to that mental side of things, was there any added pressure that you put on yourself, or was it mostly just outside noise where you're like, yeah, I finished fourth as a freshman last year. Now the next step is, hey, trying to win that national title. What was the transition from freshman year to now where you actually get that full season, on campus, less restrictions and so on and so forth when you're a sophomore?
Yeah, when going through a full Big Ten season is definitely harder than most people think, because other conferences are good, but the Big Ten conference is, you wrestle number one, then number two on a Friday, and then a Sunday, and then number three on next Friday. So you're wrestling the best guys every week, so you have to be able to put your best foot on the line every single day. And I like I said before, it takes a toll on your body. I've been in college wrestling for 5 years, and I used to train 3 times a day, and doing those things. That's what you have to do in order to be really good. And I would never redo anything I did. I know I do it all again, but yeah, Big Ten wrestling is tough, and that's where it's at. So I wouldn't redo it.
And it's funny because you had a career where you're already an All-American, and I think it's one of the rare things where an All-American does take that mid-career redshirt. Of course, things have drastically changed over the last 5 years. Obviously with the transfer portal and NIL, so maybe guys do sit out, whether it's injury or Olympic redshirt, so to speak. So, but you took a year off, not necessarily a year off, but you did have a redshirt year, mid-career redshirt. You start bulking up. I think you went 6-1 or 7-1 as a redshirt that year. What was that whole year like, considering, there were some lineup changes that were evident the following year when you got back into the lineup at 197? But what was that year like where you're just like, okay, I'm not going to be on the varsity mat. I kind of just need to train, help my teammates, and, maybe do other things that you weren't expected to do after your freshman year finish?
Yeah, for me, I was, a little bit struggling to make 184 at that time. So that was, my decision and my family and my coach's decision to go up to 197. Because holding that weight the entire year, it's tough, and you got to be able to compete and at the highest level at that weight. So going up to 97 was ultimately my decision. I needed a year or so to really fill in to that weight more, and kind of grow and get to where I needed to be so I can compete at that weight. But that year was good. It was kind of weird because I was always on the mat, and I never really took time off like that. Even in the summers, I'd be at freestyle tournaments, so I was competing a little bit, but it was mostly just training every single day. So it was definitely odd and different, but, helping my teammates and kind of just getting myself ready for that following year. That's kind of how that looked.
Did you get a new appreciation for coaching, I guess? You mentioned helping out your teammates. I'm sure you rolled with Brian Soldano a lot that year, considering I believe that was his first year on campus as well, and some of the other upper weights. Did you get a different perspective from that part of college wrestling where you were, you're the athlete in wrestling, team and individual sport, where you're focused on trying to climb the podium, but then you took a step back. Did you have a new perspective pretty much on how your coaches operate and how some of the other athletes operate too?
Yeah. Not just that year, but I coach a lot of my club, Yale Street Wrestling Club. Even
Mhm.
now, I'm gonna be helping there a lot out there a lot more. And I really enjoy the coaching
Mhm.
aspect of wrestling. I like to dive deep in the technique. It's how you can build your craft, and it's when you're the competitor and you're the coach. It's two different sports kind of thing. But
Mhm.
I really enjoy the coaching aspect, and I like giving back and helping guys train and help them, help capture their goals because I did it. And now I'm, kind of giving it and see how they can do it.
It's interesting when you go the following year, when you do come back in the lineup, 197, new weight, you got off to a really hot start, had a great finish to the year. I know it ended in the blood round, but overall you were, again, you were a top 12 guy pretty much all season long. That was your last full season. When you look back at that year, I know you mentioned you have no regrets. When you look at that, how do you, I guess, sum up that season? Is it just like, yeah, man, I wish I had one more, or is it just like, hey, I kind of left it all out there and just fell short to again an eventual national champion in Stephen Buchanan?
Yeah. I mean, falling short in the blood round, I did it I did it twice. I think once or twice. It's definitely not, not great, not how you want to finish, but
Yeah.
you look back at it and, I gave it everything I had. And, it is what it is. That's what my career ended like, and that's what it was my decision ultimately. And I went out on my own terms, and
Mhm.
I stand by it.
I like the fact that you say you go out on your own terms, and I know it was a gradual process, I guess, to come to that hard decision to eventually retire from the sport. Right ahead of the postseason, was there a part of you that was like, you know what, maybe I should finish it at Big Tens and NCAA's or try to do so, or is it like, you know what, it's best for me, team, whoever the case may be, that to walk away now? I believe it was like mid February, near the end of February.
Yeah, mid-February. Like I said, it was months in advance.
Hmm.
That I was trying to get to the end, and
Hmm.
after one nick and then one nick, and then it all kind of topples on top of each other and gets really heavy. And then you're like, you know what? It's better for me and best for everybody that I kind of just go now. And
Hmm.
I didn't want to just waste everybody's time and waste my own time. I can go out and do other things and kind of start my next process, my next ventures in life. So that's kind of where I was at there.
What were those conversations like? Like, who did you lean on most when you were trying to, I guess, debate this decision in your head? Whether like, all right, it's just 2 or 3 more weeks, I can get through it, or it's now, it's not worth it to me. It's not worth it to my teammates and coaches. What were those? One, what were those conversations like? And two, who did you really lean on during that? I mean, I can imagine that was probably the most difficult time of your career.
Yeah, definitely my family, definitely the sports psych staff at Rutgers, the
Mhm.
coaches, my club coaches, Donnie D. Flippis, all those guys, and myself too. You have to look at yourself in the mirror, and I always told myself when you're not having fun anymore,
Mhm.
it's just a sport. I always went out there, to go have fun. College athletics and even in high school, it's changing. It's becoming a business, and it's
Mhm.
becoming like not just because you like to play the sport, and you like to go have fun. It's becoming more than that, and it's good for the sport, but it also can be bad for the sport. And
Mhm.
I don't like where it's going, and it's kind of where I see college athletics right now. You know.
Yeah, as far as college athletics in general, with the NIL and the transfer portal, it's been a thing for what now 3 to 4 years at this point, but it
Mhm.
has changed drastically over the last couple of years. What have you noticed from your perspective as far as is that something that you were really, I mean, maybe not chasing, but was NIL a big part of maybe towards the end of your career when it was more of a factor, or was it just like, you know what, I'm just gonna leave it to the side and maybe I'll get a few extra bucks here and there. What was it like from your perspective?
I mean, I really didn't care about that really at
Yeah.
all. I mean, I don't. I mean, we're not making millions of dollars. I mean, maybe some guys are now, but like football, basketball, those sports are the ones that are
Yeah.
making the big bucks. For wrestling, you're not making that kind of money, and I really don't really see it like like that either. I mean, like I said, I did it because I wrestled the sport because I love to do it. It was fun.
Mm.
I enjoyed it. And I wanted to have a great career, and I wanted to inspire, the young wrestlers, the young kids below me that, you can, do whatever you put your mind to. And that's kind of the reason why I did it, and the why, my why basically. But where college wrestling's going now, I don't like it. Or college sports in general, I'll say. I think
Yeah.
it's ruining, athletics and the reason why people do things. Someone will go in the transfer portal today and be somewhere in tomorrow. There's no more loyalty. And I'm a big loyalty guy. I think, you got to be able to stick to your roots and stick to what you say, not just, one thing goes bad, you get up and leave and go somewhere else and then do it again the next year and the next year. I don't like that at all. That's
Are
not
you a
me.
big Are you a big purity guy when it comes to? I mean, again, with the way how much money college athletics is making, and just from a general sense, where the athletes to me deserve to be compensated, but obviously there's with no guardrails, you get the Wild West, and then you get, I guess,
Mhm.
changing quote unquote rules year to year. I can imagine, based on what you're saying, you're still more of a purist when it comes to college athletics, but it seems like there's still some room in your head for, I guess, NIL with maybe the way it was intended to be. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, there's got to be more rules. There's got to be regulations. It can't be the wild, wild west. I mean,
Mm,
they should bring back, like, if you want to transfer, you got to sit out a year. I
yeah.
mean, or make you sign a contract saying, like, all right, if you breach this, how kind of like how the NFL does that or stuff like that. If you want to
Mhm.
get into that, but like I said, there's no more loyalty. There's no more, trust in your coaches. There's no more trust in anybody. You can be one place one day and one place the next day, and
Mm.
it's I don't like it. I mean, yes, we should be compensated. Yes,
Yeah.
I agree with that, but there should be more rules and regulations behind it before they just kind of threw it out there.
Mm.
So,
Yeah. I wanted to get your thoughts on where Rutgers is right now. Of course, the criticism comes with, a couple guys falling short in the blood round this past season. It happened in Tulsa the other year. Guys came back last season, or 2024 with two more All-Americans. I'm sure they'll be back on the upswing, so to speak. What do you make of the program and the talent that was accumulated in that room, especially from I guess comparing it from your freshman year, where you and Jackson Turley were both young in the lineup, were all Americans. Of course, you had Sebastian Rivera at the time, towards the end of his career, getting on the podium that year as well. But it seems like every year, despite some end of season results, the talent seemed to pretty much increase year to year as your career progressed. Where do you make of that evaluation, and where the program is heading into next year? And I guess how much are you really going to be following it now? Now that you're out of the sport.
yeah, I'll definitely be around the sport, the rest of my life. It's always been a part of me and it always will be. But there's a lot of new faces. Every year there's new faces, but, the team's going to look, completely different. I'll say that from
Mm,
where I was 2 years ago or even last year. There's going to
mm.
see a lot of new faces in the lineup. But, they'll have a good year. They'll bounce back. They'll get some All-Americans. And I think Rutgers is on the rise for sure. So.
What do you make of your time with the program? Obviously, you were coached, I believe, the entire other than Coach Pritzloff leaving ahead of this past season. I believe you were under the same coach. I can't remember, the years are all kind of all jumbled to me now, but I believe Coach Middich was also in the room for the bulk of your career, if not your entire career as well. But obviously with Goodale, Pollard, and Coach Labriola this past season as well. What'd you make of just learning under those guys, year to year, and seemingly, again, even though you finished fourth as a freshman, you seemingly did get better every year in terms of some techniques. What was your experience like under that staff over your 5 years?
Yeah, no, it was great. I wouldn't, like I said, I wouldn't change anything. I mean, Coach Pritzloff was a big reason why I went to Rutgers too.
Mhm.
But Coach Goody, Middich, Pollard, Labrioli, just for this year alone, they all did really great. They helped me, get to, be a better person,
Mhm.
better athlete. But no, I think Rutgers is in good hands going forward.
As far as your own podcast is concerned, I want to talk about it a little bit. Destination Talk, of course, good stuff with all the other athletes that you do talk to. I'm curious about the perspectives that you get from other athletes, whether they're wrestlers, they're guys in jiu-jitsu, cross country, whatever the sport may be. Do you find it fascinating that you can get similar yet totally different perspectives? Everyone seems to have the same goal in their sport, but what do you learn by engaging with those athletes and saying, oh, that's a great mental mindset to have, but it's also very similar, just maybe in a different way from how I operated?
Yeah. So destination talk is something myself and one of my speed coach, Harry, he and I started, where we talk to athletes and kind of talk to them about how they got to their destination, what their journey was like, and how they got to their goals. And we're on episode I think 17 now. We recorded 17 episodes, and being able to look at people's different perspectives, and not just athletes but coaches we talk to as well. We just interviewed Eric Legrand. That'll be out and coming soon. Um, but hearing what people say, it's all very similar, and I can connect it with it myself. But it's good for other people to see and hear what they're going to say, and what things people go through in different journeys. And it's something I'm having fun with. I'm enjoying it, and it's like kind of like I'm giving back a little bit, but in a different way. Kind of through a mindset, and people talk about their tasks and what they did. So it's something I enjoy doing.
When you give back, is that something that you really like doing? I know you just kind of alluded to it, but the fact that you can give athletes a platform to really open up about maybe they had their struggles along their journey, as you mentioned before, maybe similar to your situation as well. But you've given a lot back through the sport of wrestling. Do you like this side of it too, where it's like, this is a platform where we encourage, to be open and honest about, maybe you've had, mental struggles or mental fatigue through your sport. I can imagine that is a big part of why you do it too, as well.
Yeah. I just like to hear people's stories as well. I really enjoy hearing, because everyone has a different story. My story is different than yours. Yours is different than 5 other people. And seeing how people got to where they are and got to what they've done, and is something that I find very, very cool. And I like to hear about everyone's story, and whether they're play soccer, or cross country, or wrestling, or they've just been a coach their entire life. I think not just giving back through my club, at Yale Street Wrestling Club, or doing clinics, but like I said, this is from a different perspective, and life is all about perspectives, and how you see things.
Switching gears a little bit, the Paz Garage Gym, is that still alive and well right now? I can imagine that that's not going to go away anytime soon.
Oh no, yeah, that'll never go anywhere. That's at my dad's garage. So we're slowly, finding new things, and we go in there, get lifts in sometimes, and that'll never go anywhere.
What are you still trying to put up big numbers at this point, or is it more just about maintaining the physique? As you, I mean, again, I know you mentioned before how you wanted to physically and mentally recover first before getting back into some really heavy competition outside of wrestling. What are the workouts like now at this point?
Right now, I kind of just been, I haven't really been doing much. I've been just relaxing, trying to let my body heal. I mean, I go to acupuncture a lot, PT and all that, but I'm kind of just relaxing. I mean, I used to train 3 times a day, and sometimes I'm like, I don't really want to go work out today. I don't have to, I can go, rest my body, and then eventually I'll get back to it. But right now, it's kind of just, getting through it and feeling good.
I mean, if you're trying to feel good, I'm actually stunned that you still train jiu-jitsu, because of course, your body's getting contorted in all sorts of ways up. As far as jiu-jitsu is concerned, I know you and I have talked before about, potentially competing in that sport as well. I believe you're still a purple belt, correct? And what are your training regimen? What's your training regimen look like for jiu-jitsu? Have you been dabbling back into the sport a little bit?
I haven't gotten, not yet. Last time I competed was, I want to say, my senior year of high school. But I haven't put a gi on yet. I haven't been doing it too much. But I train at Vitor Shalom, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu in Scotch Plains, and I'll go back there eventually when I'm ready to go. And I'd love to compete in the ADCCs and maybe the CJI and all that kind of stuff down the line. But I got my blue belt at the moment, and
Okay.
eventually, is a goal of mine to get my black belt one day. But train and compete in one of those tournaments, and kind of take my wrestling and maybe bring it into the jiu-jitsu world a little bit too. I could always teach clinics and do that kind of stuff. So there's a world of a whole new world there that I can kind of venture into and see where it takes me.
Do you feel more wrestlers should get it? I mean, I know now because NIL is so rampant in college athletics, these guys can get paid a lot more than they did even 3 years ago through
Mhm.
college wrestling. But not everybody's going to reach those Olympic goals, unfortunately, because there's only so many spots on the Olympic and world teams. But there's other stuff they can do. Do you feel like jiu-jitsu? I mean, unless they go the MMA route, is jiu-jitsu pretty much one of the best vehicles and I guess tracks for wrestlers to do something post college at this point?
Yeah. There's a life after, I guess life after sport, you call it, like life
Mhm.
after wrestling and jujitsu, and you can make money in doing that too. I mean, they're both combat sports. I mean, jujitsu is a lot slower, not as fast as wrestling. But it's a lot more technical though. There's more submissions. I mean, there is no submissions in wrestling, but there's more techniques that you have
Mhm.
to learn. It's more of a in-depth craft, I'd say. I'm not saying wrestling's not, but you know what I mean. You do jujitsu, so you can kind of see from that. But yeah, there's definitely you could do it. There's guys I know that are 50, 60 years old that are still doing it. So it's something you can do your entire life just to not just competing, but stay in shape in, and something that keeps you involved around the combat sports.
Yeah, right. I know when I first did it and actually started training, I'm just like, I still don't like going on my back, but but obviously,
I don't wrestle I don't do jiu-jitsu my back at all.
yeah, no, yeah, it's unfortunately a huge part of the sport. I've had to get used to it over my nearly 5 years of training. A couple more for you, John, and again, I appreciate your time this morning. I guess one more on jiu-jitsu, because you mentioned 80cc and CJI, maybe some of those big competitions, the peak of the sport. As far as if you decide to go in that direction and train a lot. You already mentioned you have a full-time job right now, coming out of college. If you decide to train that much or try to go that route, will it be a situation where you go all in on jiu-jitsu and make that your full-time gig? Or is it still like, you know what, I'm fine with the balancing act of I want to work, but I'll train as much as possible as I can, considering your wrestling background as well?
I think I would definitely try to balance it for sure.
Mm,
And then we'll see where things are. If I'm a big believer in taking it day by day. I
yeah.
mean, right now I got a good job. I'm gonna start that soon, and then I'll get into jiu-jitsu once I feel fit and feel good enough to get into it again, and kind of want to start that journey because that's my next journey.
Mhm.
But I think I'd balance it for now, and then see where life takes me.
As far as where life is taking you, and I'll leave you here with this one. What awaits you now that are you graduating now with a I guess another bachelor's or 5 years of college? I would imagine there's a second bachelor's or a master's degree. What's that look like over the next month first?
Yeah, I'll get my master's in beginning of May. A
Mhm.
master's in digital marketing. I got my bachelor's in journalism through Rutgers. So I'll have those two degrees, and I'm looking. My job is business development for
Mhm.
a construction company that I interned with. A couple years ago during my redshirt year, actually. So I was able to do that during that year. So that's kind of where I'm at there, and then kind of just doing others. I like to travel a lot. I want to go travel and see a lot of places, and that's things I sacrificed while I was competing. Couldn't do. Um, but that's kind of where I'm at, and then eventually getting jiu-jitsu and seeing where life takes me, but one day at a time, and enjoying my podcast too. I'm looking forward to recording that too.
For sure. Any bucket list destinations right now off the top of your head that you want to see? Is it within the United States, or are we talking like overseas, over into Europe and other continents?
Definitely want to go to Italy, Greece. I'm going to Canada in May for the
Mm,
UFC 316. I'm going
nice.
up to see that. Yeah, I'll be in Montreal for that. But kind of just going everywhere and seeing where life takes me and being spontaneous. So.
Well, I like the fact that you like to see where life's going to take you, being spontaneous, and looking forward to seeing what is next. And I mean, I will say we'll have to get once you're physically fit, I'll have to make a drive up to Vito Challenge Gym. We'll have to get some rolls in, but just obviously take it easy on me, will you?
I gotta get you on the podcast too. You got a
That's
great
right. Hey,
story.
we'll definitely do that. Yeah, you let me know, and obviously, I'm more than happy to come on as well. So, John, I appreciate your time this morning. Good luck with what's next. I really enjoyed broadcasting your career at Rutgers. Whatever happens next, obviously, you're gonna go earn it. I love seeing what you're doing, and again, we'll talk again soon, my man.
Yep. Thanks for having me on. Appreciate all the good words over the years.
No doubt. On3 Wrestling right here. Be sure to like and subscribe to this video. Leave a comment. Be sure to follow John on all his social media platforms. Plug your Instagram real quick before I forget.
My Instagram, John _pause. And then follow my podcast too, Destination _talk. Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. John Poznanski right here on On3 Wrestling.